Again, this is a proposed reconfiguration discussion. And then next week we have a budget workshop, just solely a budget workshop, not a board meeting. So we'll create the agenda based on the conversation this evening regarding the reconfiguration. I believe that it is a very big part of the discussion for the budget, the reconfiguration discussion. So that's why the bulk of this evening is going to be on that. When we met last week, it was to collect, we provided a lot of information regarding some of the questions that came up from the Saturday and the Thursday board meeting. So this is really the time that we may need to do some straw polls or some discussions such as that, so we have some direction to move forward. Kevin? Thank you. We're going to our budget books and facilities is tab 10 and tab 9 is maintenance. So the SIP list is 10, the capital improvement, and then the regular overall maintenance is tab 9. So we'll start at tab 9. And just as a reminder, we are looking at the detail page, detail by expense category.
So, first of all, I apologize for missing the last two times I've told you like that. There's some warranty with dealing with some issues. Salary, he did by expense category, salary and wages. You see the big difference there is custodial staff proposing, reluctantly proposing the kind of 3 full-time custodial staff in the district. That's a $72,000 decrease. But also along with the $72,000 decrease, it is savings on the full-time employee, but also you have to add in the increase of salary for the remaining employees. So that's $72,000. Overtime wages increased 17,000 to 40, but that's a number of different reasons. That goes on building use, is district wide. A lot of it has to do here with theater. Benefits, those are all predetermined. That whole category. Then you go down to the purchase contracted services. The SROs predetermined. The contracted services building grounds increased to 29,928. We'll go over that when we get to that page. You see a decrease in the general maintenance contracted services, 18,164. Capital contracted services, capital improvement investment project list. You see an increase of 42,505. I will go over when we get to them. The next line, contracted services, architects and engineers, decrease of 90,000. That 100,000 was for the assessment that we just did. We leave $10,000 in there just in case we need any type of architect or engineer. Soil and trash stays the same. Water and sewer decreased by 200. Same. Portable classroom decreased to 2,100. That's actually the elimination of the last storage container that we had put at Northborough Primary for COVID. Room classrooms for social distance. And probably not the biggest shocks, increase of 31,400. Moving to and anybody have questions on those on that right of base? So we'll go to supplies. Heating oil. That is again all worked out through my and so and it's yes, it's still an estimate. That's just so we can give you a problem. Or good. Propane is same increase of 11.5. Electricity was always predetermined by facility use. And diesel gas decrease of 10,000. Now that's not transportation. That is just facility maintenance equipment for all the district. Carried out the ground stay the same. Maintenance supplies dropped by 5. that's like just stuff driving, staff repair, anything that comes up during the end of it. It's not used by the contracted service. And the big item here, 50,000, is for the relocation of central office. And what we do as far as reconfiguration. Equipment. I'm asking for to replace the utility vehicle here that the two gentlemen last night used for maintenance and preparation of the game fields. When we currently have, it's 15 years old, it's well, it's like, and it needs to be replaced. It's not worth fixing. There's no trade value to it. But also with that price comes two attachments. One with standard offer for wintertime, along with product plow, because we do have a nice piece of equipment. I could order that does a majority of the lots, but I did find out, I mean, it's practically brand new, but I did find out, unknowingly, that we don't have backup. So we had an issue the very first storm with that Kubota where we lost the whole hydraulic pump. And I had nothing, it's backing up. So this is also serves as a backup piece for that. The next category is the fees. Again, the insurance deductibles, those have changed. We used to have a $5,000 deductible. Now each incident is a $10,000 deductible. So that's the increase to the $20,000 line. Yeah. Yeah. Just real quick, just the price has changed depending on whether it's just like a pump repair or a roof repair. Is the $10,000 deductible and it's $50,000 deductible. So I'll let Denise kind of help explain how it works.
So we were informed by our insurance carrier last year that there were changes to the deductible system. Again, as Kevin said, they used to be $5,000 for for an incident. Now they've largely gone to if there's a loss regarding a named storm, whether it's hurricane or a snowstorm or whatever. There's now a $10,000 deductible per incident. If it's a named storm and it's wind damage to a roof, it's 50,000. And there are so many different levels to it now. We originally were thinking about perhaps putting in 50,000 worst case scenario. But what we've decided to do for this year is put in two $10,000 deductibles for named storms and hope that covers it. Again, it's really at the whim of nature, but I think two is reasonable.
Can I ask, how often has that happened to us in the past?
As far as
Yeah, claims for,
last year we didn't have any, but the year before we had the roof issue already. Prior to that, a few years prior to that, we had the east wind of the agent roof that came on during the storm. So two of the kind of hold us accountable for this, making a rate because it's our fault, or it's like building that keeps happening to it. But we have had them in the instance within the past 7 years. Now, along with like the smaller items, we used to be able to, a lot of the claims would be over the $5,000 old deductible, we claim on insurance. Problems now, a lot of the stuff that would happen in the past, that kind of doesn't happen frequently, but we do. Now, hopefully, we're over $10,000. So it's kind of gets like too big for us.
what about the one at the Hussey School this year?
What's that?
That is not,
It wasn't a named storm, the CMP issue.
Oh, the CMP issue. That's, do we want to discuss that right now?
Fine.
Yeah.
Carry on.
Carry on. Thank you. That's a very long conversation.
Okay.
So now we are down to state reporting fees. Them are just rate increase for inspectors, licensed, life safety equipment, elevators, that's all that. We have bonds from 2010 that one will end in 26, one will end in 27. Then we have the 2020 SR long renovation bond sprinklers will change. And the bond we just took out last year for the HVAC change. And the one below it for the 2024 SR overage bond starts next year. It's the same. Down to leases, you'll see the number of unit lease ends this fiscal year we're in. The normal unit lease ends 26, Hanson ends 27, and the lease that we just did this past summer ends in 31. So now, if you're in the next page, you'll see the list of contracted services. The one big one there is you skip down, you'll see HVAC maintenance, you'll see specialty services, you see a decrease of 20,435. Now, I just want to remind everybody that that is just a 1 year contract. Because we are in the middle of still doing this HVAC upgrades, we're actually in phase 2 now, but started already. That's going to be going on through the summer and into September, October. That's going to change once all those projects get done, because right now we've got 2 groups. We've got our service spending now, especially services. We have a service contract with for HVAC that is working with BIM's mechanical services. We're doing the upgrade and working together. So when it all gets said and done and everything's complete, there's going to be a lot of warranties as far as 1, 5, 10 years that 2 different companies are going to be responsible for. So that'll all be determined, and the two groups together will work to find a contracted service price that'll satisfy the district. You're going to see an increase for, you'll see asbestos inspection, and you'll see environmental safety and hygiene, a bump from 5 to 20,000. And the reason for that is usually the 5,000 covers the required and state mandated annual, quarterly inspections for asbestos in our buildings. They're the ones that are keepers basically. And the other 15,000 is for, which I have never budgeted before, but in the last 2 years, and I actually have one coming up this year, maybe 2. I've never budgeted for, like, if we have a recurrent illness or an increase in illness or sickness within a class, or I get a doctor's note saying that we have an indoor air quality issue. It's usually $5,000 per test. So I put in there for 3 tests per year. And the big one down bottom, you'll see around 25,000 for plumbing service over the district. That line used to hit a line below it, the 92,000 miscellaneous vendors, but I bumped it up to here because like it's a frequent vendor I use on a pretty much regular basis sometimes. Anyone that's down to the drainage. Depending on what might break out somewhere as far as plumbing pipes. So, and then you get to that bottom line, which is basically $92,000 for miscellaneous vendors. That's a number that we've just kind of had over the past couple of years. It's hard to determine because you don't know what's going to break. For example, we had the middle school bleachers at this time last year. We were talking about when we put together this budget that we're currently in. That was not, not in the scope of work. So that's kind of that lines. And then below that, it is.
Kevin, can I ask a question there?
Yes,
You said that the 25,000 for the plumbing used to be in the miscellaneous repairs,
that's what we used to take out.
but the miscellaneous repairs didn't go down by 25,000. So you're anticipating other repairs that
Yeah.
you've been waiting on? Can you talk on those, please?
Well, I'm not that I'm waiting on because I can't predict. I mean, it's not planned work. Let's put it that way.
So have you been spending approximately 92,000, like, well, I guess plus 25. So, right, you've been spending like 100, almost 20,000 in repairs a year?
Okay. And then below that is the contract for snow plowing. And the waste services, which those are 3-year contracts, which is the first, actually the second year of each. So after it's all said and done, you can see, I mean, it's an increase of $187,000. But there's 3 big ticket items that you can look at that kind of hit that cost. Here's your electricity, your fuel, $50,000 for the relocation central office possibly. And then the equipment replacement I asked for. So there's not much to it. I don't have any contracted, capital improvement projects other than the roof replacement at Hanson Elementary, but that is also goes hand in hand with the HVAC upgrade that we're doing, because we've got to replace some rooftop units up there, and that's a roof that needs replaced, and that's actually mentioned in the assessment report that needs to replace the HVAC. Was kind of perfect timing. So mechanical services builders actually subcontract the roofing work to our roofer that does our buildings. So all gets done at once. That's basically it. I mean, there's not much to it. There's really nothing there. I mean, a few projects that we're going to do in-house, but I try to cut as much as I could. Again, I'm concerned because I'm not doing any capital improvement projects. And then a lot of it's listed in the facility assessment report. And really concerned about losing people that. That's my biggest concern. So, any questions?
Does the relocation of the central office also include the cost to get the high school ready for 7th grade?
Yes,
Okay.
that's all said.
Thank you.
So,
I remember sitting here last year, and there were some projects that you thought were high priorities last year that we did not do last year. And are you talking about them in the next next tab, or?
well, I actually had it in this year as we started making cuts. Now we're already pulled from.
So the urgent concerns you had last year,
That's correct.
I don't know what the next level is for urgent.
Extreme.
I mean, wasn't it like several $100,000 worth of?
Well, we had paving that I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And also the roofing that I put in this year for Hanson was actually in last year's budget. It got taken out, but that was also in looking forward to the HVAC project being done. So I took that out of last year's budget. Now alleviate some pressure last year, but I had to put it in this year so we could do the HVAC project roof at the same time. So that's one of the projects that's in here. I mean, we still got paving to do. We've got a lot of window replacement to do. I mean, the voters just approved, a massive HVAC upgrade. But again, which is way overdue. I mean, we all saw the presentation. I mean, so 40-year-old equipment, HVAC wise, yes, we're catching up on. But also looking at the assessment report, and I'm not saying those numbers are accurate as far as any dollar amounts attached to it, but Mobile High School is 25 years old now. This roof here is going to be due for replacement. So we have to start looking ahead. Sorry.
Yep. I just want to add that one of the things that the Harriman project will do for us is they're helping us set up a 5 or 10-year plan to address maintenance costs. So they will have information on all the systems and all of the buildings when they were replaced. I do not know if they have estimated costs, but what we are going to do with that is for fiscal 27, we are hopeful for building toward a minimum amount that we have in each budget that will go toward building projects. And that will alleviate the spikes in the projects we're able to fund and give the budget some consistency in that way. So I think that will help Kevin. And work toward that goal, which is what we have for a while.
Yeah, my concern, just, in the Harriman study, pointed out a lot of things that whatever reason they're where they are, I'm not gonna suspect. So sounds like we're overdue for that. We should have been doing that for several years, but we haven't been. So I'm figuring, how are we gonna make that work in the budget that we're fighting with now? It's not like the budget's going to get, all of a sudden just wonderful, in the years to come. So,
And it's not that we didn't talk about private land, and just circumstances come up with. When we haven't done budget, this is where the big ticket items are.
right, and that's where it costs us the most, right? My point is, right, it's just like our homes. If we don't maintain our homes, eventually it costs a heck of a lot more money. And so I would rather see us fully fund our maintenance and making things that are right, so that we don't end up with massive surprises. I mean, I know storms happen. I can't believe insurance companies or whatever. That's crazy, but it is what it is. We don't have control over that, but we do have control over the regular, knowing that we have to constantly repair things and fix things and maintain things so that we're not paying huge amounts of money and seeking out bonds in the future, right? That's just, now we're getting money and we have to pay interest on it instead of just paying it regularly. I would much rather see us, that 10-year plan. It sounds like it's overdue. I'm glad that we're going to see it in the future, but I would much rather be seeing it, last year or earlier.
And historically, I want to say, first of all, Kevin and his crew do an amazing job of keeping the buildings up. You will have every and recognize that. So please understand that the buildings are not, there are projects to be done, but they are not suffering to the point where people are like, wait. I just want to make that clear. The other thing is, we have already historically budgeted for projects when we are able to pay for them outright. You will see there were very few bonds, if any, for the last 15 years. This HVAC project is just so big and is needed in so many places that it was the only way we could finance it and get the important work done. So it is usually our intent to pay for them, but because of budget constraints, oftentimes those are the things that get pushed down the road.
Yeah, and like a perfect example last year was using designated reserve money to bring down the percentage on the budget instead of actually addressing the maintenance and repairs issues that we should have done. That's just an example. And so, and I mentioned it last year, I mentioned it this year, I just really like to see us use the limited funds we have better.
And you'll notice we did not use fund balance this year.
Yeah, because it's there.
But we got it done. Okay.
Yeah, and just one follow-up on your point, is the whole you have. And it's get to the point that, all right, it's necessary or urgent, we should be in the urgent category to fix it. It's all in the hands of the evidence. So if you said we can get to that point, and I realize the culprits, like fix it, but you can't do that. We're gonna find it all the time. I just trying to find a personal thought. The HVAC, watching it, great, yeah, but it's more to facilities than just the HVAC. So I'll leave it there. And we'll discuss the CNP issue later. It's just.
Okay, just want to hear the story.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I do capital improvement?
Yeah. Kevin, did you, touch on capital improvement? Tab 10,
No, I'm all done.
okay.
And I'm sorry.
Just Nancy just asked if you will touch upon capital improvement a little bit.
Assumed you rank them order that needs to go first as number one to be done first, and so.
Yeah, that's kind of how we do it, and then we said, gotta make cuts or whatever we get to, we prioritize what we can, and then what we can, money-wise, or that's where we go with it. So it's kind of calculated, yes, let's put that.
So under each school, number one is the one that you'd most want to, and
Correct.
Any question?
It's gonna be those email me, and I can get the prices.
That's the replacement that he's talked about. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Move into the second agenda item, which is the proposed reconfiguration. Let's plug this in. Just, I'm going to be just referring to this page, just as an overview again, so we'll try to get that projected up. And it just talks about the reconfiguration. Spaces. Thank you. And this is projected for the audience. The board members have this document in their, I think it's tab 17. Yep, 17. This is just a recap of the proposed reconfiguration. So, Busy School would be pre-K or pre-kindergarten to grade 3. North Berwick Elementary would be pre-K to grade 3. Noble Middle School would be the district, grades 5 and 6, and a central office. Noble High School would be the district, grades 7 to 12. The Hanson School would be kindergarten to grade 3. The Lebanon Elementary School would be utilized for the gym, for PE classes, some other overflow. The Knowlton School would be the district, grade 4, and adult education. And the Mary Bird Academy would be grade 7 to 12 special purpose school, the North Berwick Food Pantry, and the Second Chance Cooperative. So again, that is just to recap the proposed reconfiguration. There have been a couple of questions just about what's reconfiguration, how much is that savings versus how much is the savings from just regular reductions. So I'm going to post that now as well. Yes, these will handle, Sue's going to handle that.
Okay, Joe. There are 2 pages to this, Denise?
Yes.
Oh, good Lord. Okay.
All right, thank you. You want one, Denise? No, I'm good.
So, yeah, take 2.
It's one of them. It's saying.
Second.
Okay. What's that?
I had the.
Is that big? They only have paid.
No, I got
We're
two.
good.
I got two.
Good. So again, this is the document that the board is looking at, and the top of the document says savings from district reconfiguration. So again, due to the fact that the board is in discussion phases right now, we are not really specific as far as particular positions, primarily because we need to have some direction from the board before we have some discussions with our, with our teachers and our staff. And so again, what you're looking at are at the actuals, but we do not have people attached to them. And that is very intentional because it's a conversation that we need to have one-on-one, not in public with staff or teachers. If there's an impact to them or their position. Nancy.
And that first one, teacher's contract, there's nobody making $163,000. That's teachers, right?
I was just gonna go through this. So under the teacher's contract, that includes classroom teachers, interventionists, specialists, guidance and school counselors. Those are the positions under the teacher's contract. And again, these are clumps. These are not, so it's not $330,000 for one position. These are, as we go through the reconfiguration document, these are the areas. So that total for those falling under the teacher's contract you will see the total over, it's $1.3 million.
1.3.
And then the support staff, again, if they're clumped, so it's not, some of it are clumped, like the last number, 249.5, that's a group, or a certain particular portion. The administration, again, is, broken down. And then stipends and intramurals. And then other staff. So these are non-association or non-union staff members. So those, we have several groups that are not on union or association contracts. Some of that is central office staff, the custodial staff, some of our technology department staff. So though that would be that group. And then equipment. So these are things that we would see, like cafeteria tables, kidney shaped tables in the classrooms, desks, those types of things, and then supplies. The supplies could be anything from markers and crayons to, scissors, different things like that. So this is just for the reconfiguration. And this is the savings from the reconfiguration. So it's $2.2 million. And then we're going to go into the savings from the budget reductions. And so these are above and beyond the reconfiguration. So again, it's set up the same way. So we've got the teachers, anyone under the teacher's contract. So that's there. The support staff, administration, and then it listed out some stipends and intramurals, other staff, the equipment, books and supplies, miscellaneous and that's local entitlement, athletic transportation, and then a few other transportation items, bus ride tracker, the mini bus, summer bus runs, and then a few technology items, licenses and apps, repairs, mileage and travel. And then we have advertising, and that's primarily for, mostly for vacancies, or sometimes the advertising also includes our budget book. So anything like that. And then the general maintenance in the CIP list that is listed there. And then miscellaneous rounding and technology E-rate.
Utilities?
Sorry, what?
Are you on miscellaneous?
Miscellaneous maintenance, yeah, utilities, insurance, supplies. Yep, thank you. And then technology, the E-rate projects and iPads. And that comes out to 2.1 million. And then we have some extra revenue. So we have we put an increase in sports fees. And then we have a reduction of one student tuition to MHA. And we have an increase in our high cost out of district students. And then we have a reduction in miscellaneous revenue. And then we have state subsidy for an extra 16 students. And that's 131,000. Breaks it down a little more in detail for the board as you look through the savings from budget reductions and then the savings from reconfiguration. Are there any clarifying questions just on this document?
Audra, are you saying if we did not reconfigure the district, we could not save any of that 2.5 million on the top sheet? Is that an accurate statement?
The reconfiguration portion?
Yeah, the reconfiguration portion, the 2.2, if we did not reconfigure, are you saying that we would need to pay, definitely we need to pay for those $2.2 million worth?
That's what we're saying, yes.
Do you want the revenue
Sure.
for that?
Sure. So what that means for the district budget, so let's review that briefly. Currently, the expenses are increasing on the budget that we have proposed 2.39%. And we are looking, because of also a loss in revenue, the total to taxpayers is 8.85. If we were not to do the consolidation and had to add back that number, the 2,264,696, that would bring it to a 6.98% increase to expenses and an 18% increase to taxpayers.
Um, one of the questions that's been posed to me is, if we're not going to totally shut down the Lebanon school, if we have some purpose left for the school, why wouldn't we close it down totally? Could you explain the process of what it takes to close a school?
You want to explain the process or?
So in order to close down a school, there are state requirements for that. A school is considered fully functioning when it provides instruction to K-12 students. If you have just, for example, an adult ed program there, it wouldn't count, it wouldn't satisfy the state requirements of being open as an instructional facility. In order to close an instructional facility, in addition to the paperwork that needs to be done with the state indicating why you're doing it, there also has to be a vote by the town taxpayers. So in this case, Lebanon Elementary, the voters in Lebanon would have to be the ones to say, yes, we vote to close this. And that process, I don't think has really begun.
Is there any financial consideration that the town of Lebanon would have to come up with a payment to buy the school from the district if they wanted to repurpose it?
So the Lebanon Elementary School was owned by the district. And I have not been here. I was not here when we closed the Berwick Elementary School. I believe that happened in 2005, 2006. And I believe there's quite a lengthy process to determine what happens with the building, the property, all of that. I'm not conversing on it right now, but.
So I feel like we need to come to some decision here as a board, because we can sit here and toss all these figures around forever, but we got 2 weeks to get a budget together to go to print. And I think they've provided us with all kinds of information. I think I'm knowledgeable enough now to make an informed decision. I don't know about what the rest of the board feels.
I agree. I agree as well.
Anybody else have thoughts?
I have thoughts. I'm thinking to the online meeting that we had earlier, and I'm just not convinced that we are definitely on the hook for that 2.2 million above. When I think to what was discussed, I just don't see it. And I can admit that I'm wrong, but I probably would want to schedule an appointment with you, Audra, or Denise, and actually see those before I'm comfortable with that. I mean, I have a list. I took time and I wrote down all the reasons, and I'll read most of it because I think it's important that I share my reflections. And so I'll just kind of summarize what I have here. Based on conversations I've had with a few members of the board, many in the community members, of whom I can't find a single person up till this meeting, that supported this restructuring, as well as my own reflections. I offer several reasons why I am, at this point, I'm not in favor of the restructuring. Number one, the discussion of restructuring the schools was a surprise to the board members, right? Some of us actually heard it mentioned by school staff when they informed us that they had participated in school meetings with administration to discuss restructuring the district. Those rumors were shared with us just prior to our board meeting on March 6th. Number two, that meeting on March 6th, Harriman, the firm that we hired to analyze our space in the district, provided their findings, partial findings, because they're not done their study. They have, I think, 3 or 4 or 5 more steps to go. So they gave us an update, I guess, of where they're at. But we have not discussed any of the findings of the Harriman study. We have not discussed that as a board. We did not discuss any of the options that Harriman put out. We haven't seen any numbers attached to it, as Kevin mentioned. And then I recognize, Ms. Beauvais, you used that, the preview of study that you had before we did, to arbitrarily plan a district restructuring affecting at least 5 of our schools. And directly after the Harriman study, you presented your plan to the board. Then at the end of the meeting, we were given our multi-page budget book, which is a big budget book, always is every year. It has 28 different categories of information: revenue, cost centers, other pertinent information. And then 36 hours later, we were doing an in-depth analysis of this. Yeah, that's a lot. My concern is that this budget book could have been given to us 2 weeks beforehand, but the condensed schedule that everything's trying to fit in, it just made it impossible. So we haven't been able to give it our due diligence in the time that we normally have. We know when we went through the budget book and we had principals presenting to us, they presented budgets that were partially based on their current 2024-25 organization, and partly on the reconfiguration. It wasn't clear in some areas, right, where the money should go. And to your credit, you said, yeah, that's something we still need to figure out. Number 6, the board has been told that this restructuring was the only way to reduce the school budget by about $5 million. But we just got information tonight that does help illuminate that a little bit. Although, again, I am not fully convinced that 2.2 is a definite, that we would have to do that based on our meeting we had earlier. One of my biggest concerns is that our communities have been largely left out of the discussion. They've not been provided with adequate opportunities to share their thoughts, their concerns, or even their suggestions. Number 9, the hastiness of this endeavor has resulted in the cancellation of 2 meetings that I'm on, one being a policy meeting and one being a code of conduct meeting. And it's even resulted in our administration having to seek legal advice because we need to be able to talk about sensitive information in such a condensed, hasty timeframe. So I summarize all this by saying this hasty decision to reorganize the district was made without the input of those most impacted by it. The taxpayers, parents from 3 communities, right? And our teachers. The board as a stakeholder group was not included in the discussions, negating our responsibility to the district students. The board did authorize the expenditure of $100,000 last year to hire a firm to provide a facility study that would allow us to make short-term and long-term plans for the district. And I think until the board has a chance to review this study, returning to the district's current organizational structure makes the most sense. We are, after all, incurring all the costs of keeping the Lebanon School open. It seems reasonable to think the board and all the stakeholders would have the time to evaluate all possibilities and avoid the pitfalls of making decisions in haste. So finally, as you contemplate your decision, I ask that you reflect on the need for the board to approve a budget within the next 2 weeks. Can we, in good conscience, approve a budget that does not yet reflect the costs, the full costs of this restructuring? Are we giving this massive decision the time and prudence necessary so that this restructuring is in the long-term best interests of all involved? Should we, again, in good conscience, approve of a restructuring without adequate opportunities to hear from taxpayers, parents, and staff? Thank you.
First of all, with all due respect, Mr. Tabor, this is my fourth budget season on the school board. And this is a typical budget cycle. It is not atypical. It is not condensed. We typically start the first week of March because we have to complete the study 60 days prior to the board presenting our budget to the citizens of all three towns. So it is not condensed. It is not rushed. You know, we make every single effort as a board and as a town to let everyone have a voice. And not everyone is always going to have their way. We have to come to some kind of consensus for what is best for most. It might not be best for all. We're facing increased cost of living. We're facing, who knows in what our federal funds will be reduced. We're facing a number of things that are unknown. And so in good faith, we need to take a stand and we need to take the information we have at hand and make our best decision. Now, everybody in each of the three towns has an ability to attend these meetings, to write to us, to call us, and make their position known. I believe that many people have done that. They've also spoken out in social media channels. We could debate this for another year, but legally, we are required to follow state law that says by April 13th, we hand our budget, our approved budget, into the hands of the town's clerks of all our three towns. So if you've got a better way to do this, I would love to hear the plan, because Josh, you tear every single line item apart. You get more information than anybody and ask it. Okay, it's your prerogative, it's your right. Nobody's taking that away from you. But also, nobody is making you race to the finish line. You have had adequate time. Now you've had a month to take a look at this book and ask your questions. And quite frankly, I'm frustrated. You may tell by my posture.
I second that, but I also would like to thank the administration for doing the work to come up with some way to save a significant amount of money from the taxpayers who don't know what they're facing this year either. Last year, we handed over a pretty significant increase. This increase or decrease, we can do without cutting some of the services that were important to people last year. I know it does rearrange students, but inevitably, according to the Harriman study, we are heading in the direction of utilizing the schools that they are directing us to focus on and cutting back on the use of others without having to wait for the process of actually closing a school or adding a gym to Hanson. I think this is just the best middle ground case we can make for doing the best for students while also finding a way to reduce the tax burden on taxpayers.
I'd also like to add, the teacher who spoke earlier, this has all been done with a lot of administration involvement. All principals and so forth. I mean, they know their buildings, they know their kiddos, they know how it works. And they have been incredibly adaptable and trying to see do things out of the box to make this work. And personally, I have a lot of faith in them that they're doing what is best for their kids. And so that's what I'm basing mine on. Every question I've asked in this budget has been answered.
Every T crossed, every I dotted. they've gone above and beyond in my humble opinion.
Just want to speak to the parents and community members knowing about this, and feeling left in the dark because like you said, we did find out. And I do school drop off, pick up and preschool drop off and pick up. And I've had so many wonderful, positive conversations with teachers and parents, and not everyone is in favor and saying like, yes, let's absolutely do this. But nobody's saying like, oh my gosh, like this is a horrific idea. I can't even. I'm not saying you're not going to see that on Facebook, but the real humans I've talked to, it's been some really good conversations that have occurred. And then this is just a totally random question, Mr. A, to put you on the spot. One of the atrocious things with at the middle school, right, is the locker room. So is moving 7th grade to the high school, I guess, Mr. Dufour, you too, going to give like 7th and 8th grade better lockers, the older kids who like need better lockers too, are in the locker rooms, you know what I'm saying? Yes, that will help with that. Okay. Just added benefit that I was just curious about as we were talking about all the facility stuff. So.
The other thoughts?
Can I make this one, I'd like to make this one comment. Josh, something you said, I don't feel is explained properly. When you said that you still don't know the full cost of this.
We have a better idea now,
Yes,
right? But when I was reflecting this, I hadn't seen anything tonight.
yes, but you said when you got the binder that the costs were incomplete. What I said was the process of pulling all of the staff and reassigning them to specific schools, that process was incomplete. All of the costs are correct. They were just not perhaps in the right school building and cost center. I just want to clarify.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
How does this work?
You just speak into it.
I just have
Nancy.
to, I don't have to turn it on?
No.
Great.
Yeah.
Didn't we just get these binders 2 weeks ago? March 6th. I'm pretty sure it was. 2 weeks ago.
Let's
It
just,
feels like it. Yes. Yeah, it might feel like a month, but I think it's been 2 weeks. Just saying. Thank you.
I think we had our all-day budget meeting on March 1st.
Yes.
Saturday.
Oh,
No, got your.
So we got
Push it out.
scheduled.
oh yeah, that's right. We had
So it would be the 6th.
Yeah, that was here.
Mhm.
So what do people want to do? You need more information? Next week is a all workshop? It's a
So-
workshop.
Mhm.
It's no voting.
Correct.
So
When would you?
I think I'm hearing
Just for a strong motion.
Straw poll. I mean, people are wondering, right, where we're gonna go, what we're gonna be doing. The straw poll is an indication, is it not?
and if you want, it's not.
And I've said my piece. It sounds like everybody else has said their piece. Straw poll, and let's move forward.
I would move forward with the restructuring.
Yes. Alba, yes?
I'm ambivalent.
It's not a meeting, it's votes, you know. Okay, we can go back to you.
Yeah, come back to me. Yes.
Yes, as well. Nancy?
We're moving too fast. I think we're going to make mistakes that we're going to regret.
Oh, is that a no?
So no.
That was a no.
So no.
So what was that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to 2. With one kind of.
You can continue to be ambivalent. It's okay, honestly, because it appears that there's a majority.
Okay. So do we vote to do it and then continue on with our?
We're in a workshop now.
Can't.
We have-
Workshops. Items for next week, is that
Right.
what's up? That's next.
I was also shared some questions. I might as well do it here. I think it makes sense. The form that Sakio is monitoring for me. So we have a question about the cost of the district study. That's
Of the what?
of the district study. That was the Harriman study. That was, and that was I can't remember if it was 110. Yeah, it's in the $110,000 range though, just for that. And then we had a question about, what effect will it have on facilities related outside contracts if 3 full-time custodial staff are cut? Will more external vendors need to be hired? If not, are we only saving 72,000 by firing 3 people? Seems like a small amount of money. And so there's that question. I think we are in a place of looking at the custodial roles and making sure that coverage is appropriate in all of the buildings. And I would expect not hiring outside vendors. But I will say clearly to everybody that as we're working through reconfiguration, it may not be a cut fully of those of 3 full-time custodian. It may be that we'll piece some things together. So, but currently that's where we're putting our dollar signs.
One other thing I'd like to mention is that we are constantly combing through the details of this budget. Just because you have a version in front of you doesn't mean that we're not still looking for efficiencies and places where we can save. What I would expect is that perhaps next week we would come back with some perhaps additional savings. And what we also find is sometimes, as in the conversation about the appropriate staffing for custodial staff, sometimes we'll find we estimate that we can have 3 positions that are tough cuts, but we think we can work within that framework. But we might come back and say, you know what, we only have 2. So let's add back one of those custodial positions. And that's when we're getting down to the nitty gritty of where we're going to end up. So things may come up that reduce some more, things may come up that increase a little bit, but we're still working actively to try to bring this budget down even more.
I asked Denise, one thing I don't see in the savings part is any savings we experience from the building LES not being fully utilized. There's going to be some.
It's my understanding, though I can work with Kevin to say this. We can do things, but we still have to keep it inspected. We still have to have the heat on. We still have to, like the operations of the building don't go away, particularly because we will have some students there. There might be some savings in electricity, but given the recent, last minute notifications about increases and such, I'm reluctant to cut too deep there. We still have some estimates. One place that I'm super hopeful for, but I don't want to get my hopes up too high, has to do with our medical insurance rates. We have in this current budget an increase of 15%. And I will be informed next Friday. So Friday, I think, is the 28th. They will tell us what the maximum and the minimum percentage increases are to the different districts. They won't tell us ours until early to mid-April, but they will tell us the cap. So if I'm expecting a not great result, I will use that cap as what we have in the budget. I'm hopeful that it will be less than 15% and that we can see some savings. Generally, if we have a 1% savings historically, that's been about $50,000. So if we were to go down 12%, in theory, we could find 150 of savings ballpark, but we won't find that out until later. Thank you.
And another question.
I do have a question. Well, it's not a question, it's more of a statement. We have, thanks. If I'm not mistaken, the staffing is 83% of our budget, which leaves us with, what did we say, 17% for everything else, including maintenance. We might really need to be looking at, we talked about it quite a bit, about reducing staff, reducing, getting that budget under control, making classroom sizes, cutting back on some of the staffing, really looking hard. Nobody wants to give up their teachers, and I understand that, but really looking hard at cutting back on some of the staffing, recognizing that people will have to work a little bit harder if they lose their assistant principal or their extras, whatever. But it would reduce the cost of the operations of this school, the district, and maybe give us a little bit of extra money to put into the facilities line, because that seems to be one that's been really squeezed for a couple of years. Just something to think about, something I would ask you to look at is to see, I know we don't want to cut back on staff, but it might be the time when we have to, and going forward.
I wrote that down.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, Denise, sorry.
What kind of staff are you specifically talking?
Across the board.
In our reconfiguration, that was a primary focus. So I'm just wondering
I
what that
think,
next.
I don't have the
looks like.
numbers. I've just been looking at numbers. And, you know, maybe some of the class sizes are still a little bit nice. Maybe we need to make them a little bigger. You know, and I recognize that's not in the best interest, but at this point in time, we need to figure out how to get the budget. 83% of the, what do we call it, the instructional, the staff, we're paying out to personnel. I'm just thinking we might want to back that off a little bit, because I think, again, if we don't keep our buildings maintained, catastrophic things happen, and then we have to come up with a lot of money. Got a lot of debt money going out, I see. Just
I think we need to look at class sizes now. I mean, that might be something we might want to look at. But
I mean, nobody wants to increase class size, but it might be an option. It might be, maybe we have a couple of class sizes that we could double. Just an option, just something to think about.
Just in response to that, I was going to make a public comment about bullying, because social media is just buried with concerns about bullying. And two things I think that we're talking about here can impact that. One, cutting vice principals. I'm very concerned about doing that, because am I not correct that that's part of their job, is dealing with bullying? So, and class size, I personally know how hard it is for teachers to address this. Bullies are generally pretty smart. They do things when teachers aren't looking, and the more we increase class sizes, the worse that's going to get. So I think as we are having those conversations, I want to make sure they're not in schools where we're having significant problems still with bullying. I also would say that current culture, I hope we are all being thoughtful about our own cultural presentation. Bullying is modeled everywhere I look on social media. Every conversation people have is full of really nasty bullying, and our kids are watching that and learning from it. And I think it's going to be very difficult for us to control it when what we see is adults doing it all day long. So, my thoughts.
So I'm going to try to finish the questions that came across. There's one more or a couple more. This one is actually specific to class sizes. How will class sizes be affected by the proposed consolidation? What about student to staff ratios, Excel programs, special ed? And I think we'll get the numbers for people for the next meeting so that that's better answered. And then lastly, I think, did I have another one? Do you? Wait a minute. Thought I had one more, but go about your business while I look for it.
I would just make this one comment that if we're really interested in hearing from the public and from parents about the structure of the buildings, we might want to ask them about how they feel about removing student-facing personnel from our schools. That's the backbone in my mind of our schools.
I think this goes along, actually, just continuing with this. This last question is, how many full-time staff will lose their jobs as a result of the restructuring? How many part-time staff? How many positions that are being cut are due to retirements? Thank you for giving us ample opportunity to share our thoughts and ask our questions. I disagree with the assertion that the taxpayers have not had adequate time or opportunity to engage. So that. And again, I think the decision about sharing the information about how many folks, it will be now based on, are we moving forward with this configuration so we can get a little more detailed for people and talk to staff prior to. That's what we're waiting for.
Is that enough information for next week for you?
I think so.
Yeah.
Are there any other agenda items for next week? We have staffing, class sizes, all that's tied together.
I think Ally wanted to discuss Excel. That was the last time. We should probably not wait till she's here. Yeah.
So we can do that next week. Yep.
And then if possible, the
Yes.
KJS, I was gonna say, and my favorite question of the dollar impact per. Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys might like that number.
What was that?
Say it again.
The dollar per, how much, the tax increase, what does it look like per $100,000 to the taxpayer in each town? So people can realize what they're actually looking at for their property value and how much the increase is, how that's going to affect them.
We can't do that till the budget's set, can we? Sorry, we can't do that till the budget's set, can we? Because we don't get the mill rate till after the town budget is approved.
Approximates.
So what we do is we take the budget, I take the district formula for how the town share the budget. And what I would do is just put in whatever the current 50.5 number. And then based on the valuations from the ED 279, I can come up with an estimate per 100,000. And it's just an estimate and it would change if the budget changes up or down.
But that would just be an estimate for the school budget, not for the individual towns who are
Correct.
also raising their budgets
Correct.
as we speak.
Yeah.
Thank you. So I had asked last week about the fourth grade and how that would balance out between the schools. So, can I possibly get that either this week or next week? So how many fourth graders would be at LES? How many fourth graders would be at North Berwick? How many would be at Knowlton? Because Berwick is at Knowlton, right?
Yeah.
And then, and then how many classrooms you're looking at? That would be at Knowlton.
So just to clarify.
Okay.
For next time, would it be helpful to list out if, so you're moving ahead with the reconfiguration. So it would just be that data, just what, like, all the fourth grade is going to be admitted. So you want the number of sections and the class sizes, is that what you're asking for?
So if the fourth graders were going to continue at LES,
Oh, okay. Not.
how many there would be?
Okay.
Okay.
Mhm.
If they were going to continue at North Berwick, how many there would be?
Okay.
And then if we go forward with the realignment, how many there would be at
Do that.
I'm really just looking for fourth grade. I'd like to know, I'd like to understand that distribution.
Can I ask another quick question? The 16 extra kids that we get money for, is that the 16 preschool kids that would, or 16 other kids? So does that mean we still have a distribution problem of
No,
30?
we don't. We're, when we wrote the grant for preschool, Blueprints had said that they could take 24 students. And then the Berwick and North Berwick could take 32. Since that time, Blueprints has worked to find space within their facility so that all three towns will have 32 students in their preschool programs.
And the other 16?
We had talked about potentially adding another classroom at Hussey School, depending on the interest and how that looks. As far, like I said, with interest and everything that we could do. So that's the placeholder for that.
Thank you.
But I want to be very clear, because I know this has come up a couple of times. All three towns are going to have the same amount of students participating out there right now in their hometown for pre-K. And we are looking at adding another spot. That doesn't necessarily mean it's gonna be an all Berwick spot or an all North Berwick spot or an all Lebanon spot, but we have that option.
Okay, thank you.
That number would allow you to essentially accommodate everyone who's,
Correct.
that would be wonderful.
Yes.
So, any other need of any information?
So we just did the straw poll. We did not vote on restructuring. Okay,
We're in a workshop, so we can't.
right, got it.
Can't vote.
I have a set of numbers I'd just like to cover that were sent to the board, that I think since we're in a public meeting and they were announced at a public meeting, just the cost per student. If the chair is okay with that?
I forwarded to you guys.
Yeah, but I just mean for public purposes, I have concerns when numbers are provided in these meetings that you have people present, they're viewed on the recording, and I don't know where they come from, and when people have tried to look at them, I get emails from people saying those numbers are wrong. So the cost per student, if you look on educationdata.org, and then I know it's, if you want to, if anybody would like to email my, I will send you this whole report. But what was presented last week does not represent it Maine well, I guess is the best I could say. But if I look at this particular resource that assesses this, New Jersey comes out the highest at 26.6 thousand per student, New Mexico the lowest at 10.1, and Maine sits relatively in the middle at 19.3, below New Hampshire, who's at 21.9. So just correcting or adding some context to numbers that were provided last week.
And I will say, you know, there's a lot of studies out there. And Nancy sent me a link to which I deleted. So, by mistake. I'll be sending those out.
While you're here, because I have it. New Hampshire is what you said, 21.
What is your study that you're quoting?
Mine is the national report card, the NAEP, where the states are ranked by their academic. Sorry about that. Academically, with the 2024 National Assessment of Educational Progress, New Hampshire is spends $21,000, you said, on their students. To pupil, they are 5th in the nation. Maine is 44th at night, spending 19,000. We need to always remember and try to remember, not forget that we need, academics is also part of this process, not just the money we spend. We need more money.
Anybody have any else things? Any other requests for information for next week? Okay, then. Can we adjourn?
Yes, we can.
Still think we're all set? Okay. I'll take take a motion now.
Motion to adjourn?
We're done.
Well,
Yeah.
it's done because of, thank you, everybody, for coming.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having us.